Here I'm using Tombow's blending palette. I lay the color down, wet it, and then put it on the paper. It creates a really cool splattering effect. I'm adding some water and some more color here to get a bigger base of the ground. Then I'm going to add some color to the dragon. Here I'm picking up the paper to spread the wet parts so that it doesn't get into too much of a puddle. And then once that color is there, I'll be using water to spread the color around. And here I'm actually adding some salt to create texture. Here I'm starting to add some details with his wing. And you'll see right here I'm using a kind of brush. It's actually a water brush, which you can have the water in the reservoir there and then squeeze it out as you need it. I'm not the biggest fan of these. I prefer using brushes. Here I'm going to add some more color because I want to get a bit more of a shadow underneath the dragon. Adding some nice little detail to his tail and the rim along his neck. And you'll see I'm using my watercolor brushes and using water to actually spread that color around. Again, adding some darker colors here under his tush and his leg to get more shading, to get more depth in this painting. It's all about the depth that you create in your paintings. It's going to make it look more realistic. So the more shading you do in key areas is going to be important. Now I'm working on his face and blending the color again with watercolor brushes and water, adding some more shading along his tail and his neck. And I tend to leave eyes to the very end, at least when I was starting out, and this is an older illustration. I like to get everything done before the eye, but here I've really waited a long time until the very end. In his wing, I'm getting more depth again by adding some more shading. And adding the color and shading around his paw and behind his little wings on his head. And then the more color that you add, the more interesting your painting's gonna be. If the dragon was just green, it would get a little bit boring. But here, I added some blues and purples to give him a little bit more character. And there's the eye and his nostril. Now he really seems to come to life. Those are key elements. Around his muzzle, I added some texture there, and you'll see I used the water and it blended it in, so the texture wasn't so pronounced. I added some scales to give him some more texture on his legs and around his face. All of this was done and created using Tombow markers. And I think that shows you the versatility of those markers. The paper I'm using is actually Canson, which is not 100% cotton, but for the Tombow dual brush markers, the Canson papers actually work quite well. Here's some more shading around his cheekbone. You can really see that there's depth in this because of all of the shading that I do. The one limitation with the Tombow markers is that you can only get so dark because you can only get as dark as the actual marker is. So if it's a light color, you can't really get it to be darker. You have to add grays and other colors to get that depth. Here's the final touches on his wings and under his neck, and that final shading that's going to give more depth again to underneath his face. And it's like he's really lying down on the ground. If you were lying down on the ground, you would have shadow right under where you are lying. I actually really love this part where I'm getting into all these little details that matter. They say that God is in the details, and I believe it. Sometimes looking at my cat or my dog and looking at the little details in their fur, I'm just amazed at what is created on this planet. A little more detail around his tail. And his little fins. I think they're called fins. I'm adding white here because it is allowing me to give a little bit of a highlight to those areas. And here you are. Oh, and I got the fangs in.